Today I'm talking about how you can scale Next.js with WordPress to 1 million developers. This is a story of how the developer relations stack, 6 production apps based on Next.js and MDX that we built last year, we were able to scale it to 450 content pieces, 1200 plus media files with WordPress. There was a little bit of a glue involved in there, and I'm excited to talk about it. So, how do you scale Next.js with WordPress to 1 million developers? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about today. I am Ahmad Awais, and today I'm sharing my story on how the developer relation stack that I built with my team here at RapidAPI, where we teach about API development, we were able to scale it to millions of developers with Next.js and WordPress. So, yeah, let me start with this hot take. On-demand incremental static regeneration are more than buzzwords. I totally believe that optimizing for content rendering patterns can actually help your business grow. It can save you a lot of money on, build times and the bills and everything, but it can also translate to a really, really good developer experience. How do I know this? Well, the thing is, I've been around the block for over 20 years. I've been writing code. I've seen this same pattern emerge with a lot of different frameworks. Like I've seen it happen with WordPress, Laravel, Vue.js, React.js, and now with, Next.js. Different rendering patterns that help you do really, really well. And with that, I think I should introduce myself. I am Ahmad Awais, Vice President of Developer Relations here at RapidAPI, and I freaking love the web platform. I also love the purple color. It's also how I created shades of purple theme. I think purple can be genius. And some people call me master of CLIs. I love automation. I've created so many CLIs, Corona CLIs, Create One Blog, and a bunch of others. I've also created a course on that if you want to check out nodecli.com. I've won GitHub Golden Stars Award twice. I've been fortunate enough to be able to spend time to create a lot of open source software over the last 2 decades, which has led me to things like, helping millions of developers who are using my code. And just last year, I got to know that some of my code actually ended up on Mars. Now I can call myself NASA's Mars Ingenuity Helicopter contributor, which is just amazing beyond this world, right? So yeah, enough about me. Let's jump into what we were doing last year. We were using MDX. I love MDX. I think it's an amazing combination of React, sort of JSX and Markdown. I also really like Markdown, right? So with MDX, we got excellent developer relations. What didn't really go well was as our content started to scale, we got more non-technical contributors or people who are technical enough but weren't willing to kind of clone our 1 GB big GitHub repository to fix a small typo, right? That goes to say that media management with MDX used as static files in your GitHub repo was a mess at scale. And I'm not just talking about small things here, right? In this graph, you are able to see right there on the left, Q4 of 2021. This is where we ended our quarter, about 150, blog posts, about I think 57 or 58 media files. But as you come closer to the end of this year, 2022, you see we have like 1,270 media files. I checked, right? It's a lot, and we have like more than 457 blog posts or pieces of content, structured content that help developers learn APIs through video, text, comics, you name it, we have got it, right? And on top of that, there are more than 5,000 different transformations of these media files. So as you can imagine, content at scale, working with a team of 30 people, it just became a giant big mess to manage as static files in a GitHub repo. So I did what any sane person would do. I started researching and searching for a CMS. Here, I'll probably give you a gotcha. I come from this background where if you have used React, WordPress, Node.js, you've probably used my code, right? I was fortunate enough to be able to contribute to the core software of WordPress that runs almost half the internet. So I could say that I am a little bit biased, but we did look at a bunch of different, popular content CMSs, content management systems that are headless. And we very quickly found out a strange fact that I could never see coming. It's like with all of these headless CMSs, you can easily use an API to fetch data. And that is basically what you need from a backend. You send a query, you get data, and then whatever front end you built can use the data to create, render your content. But there's more to it. And because I'm me, I wanted to use MDX with the CMS. Right? I wanted to send data through my CLI. I wanted to send data in a way where I could use APIs to send data to my backend to the CMS as well as get data through APIs, right? And very quickly we found out that all of these CMSs, these proprietary CMSs, especially those that were not open source, had some sort of limitation where they would have their own proprietary language that you have to use to send data with an API to their data stores. And yeah, that was not a lot of fun. Right. And what, like, at this point in time we were thinking about the CMs versus options, right? And a lot of these CMSs, the proprietary CMSs offered were options, right? You can do it like this, you can do it like this, you can build your own content style, you can build your own custom data and content structures. But in fact, what we needed at that particular time was a lot of decisions to help us move quickly, right? And even though that these two go in hand in hand, but they're completely different philosophies, right? And I'm a big fan of decisions, batteries included, decisions versus options. It's the same reason why over 64% of people who ever choose a CMS go with WordPress, right? And or like 43% of the entire internet is actually built on top of WordPress. So yeah, what we did. We chose WordPress. Uh, the bottom line. Let me actually show you what it looks like from our end. This is the editor role that you are looking at right now. So we can work with many different user roles. A CMS can offer you something like this. And here are all of our production apps data that are, built with Next.js, right? All of that in a single WordPress instance. So there are guides, learn, labs, courses, which are video courses, threads on Twitter, example repos on GitHub, and their deployed versions on Vercel, training site, which we are building right now, and our comics. For example, let me actually dive deep into one of the guides. So here you see a lot of customization. We want to have a lead, and we have a markdown component right there in WordPress. But if you scroll down a little bit, oh, what is this? This is pretty amazing. If you have ever used MDX, you might have figured it out that we are right now using MDX inside of WordPress. Yeah, if you want to not use MDX, if you are a non-technical person, we offer you a WYSIWYG experience inside of WordPress. But you can still use MDX, right? Because WordPress allows you to send it data in whatever form and shape you want and take data in whatever form and shape, whatever API you prefer. And that is exactly what we did. We also built, examples app on top of it, which looks like this. Here's a word usage app, right? That is completely open source. There's a guide written on top of it, but you also get the code. And here's a demo URL, which is, by the way, hosted on Vercel. Thanks a lot for that. And here's what it looks like. So if you go to rapidapi.com/examples, you will see like we have like 60 plus apps completely open source. And if I search for that word app, there you go. If I click on this is all open source. You can read the code. It's built with Next.js, and it has a live preview that actually works. For example, let's search for the word next. There you go. Next in line, the next president, the next item on the list. So the next item on the list I have is the bottom line. The bottom line is we went with WordPress, and we I ended up having a lot of back and forth with the team. We had to go with a lot of different decisions than what you are generally used to. So I've seen a lot of the community. They look at WordPress and they're like, okay, I can use it in a headless way. The thing is, WordPress was not built to be a headless CMS, right? It is like notoriously hard to configure as a headless CMS. But like I think half a decade ago, we ended up creating REST API, which is native to WordPress, through which you can get any kind of data out of WordPress. There is also a WP GraphQL plugin and a couple other GraphQL plugins. I think they lack parity. They lack the developer tooling that should be there to help you debug GraphQL. And a lot of people just grab the GraphQL plugin, grab the core of WordPress and they're like, I don't understand what is happening here. This is really hard to debug, and there is not a lot of support there. So for them, I would recommend that there are things like graph databases. There are things you want to do where a graph QL API is more suited. I think, and this is just me, for my this particular use case, I think REST API was a much better approach. And since it is native to WordPress, there are a lot of workflows built into WordPress that you can use and quickly create your custom endpoints the same way you expect to do with GraphQL, right? We also ended up using Metabox, which helped us create custom content structure that you would see any proprietary custom CMS, market about that WordPress kind of started implementing like way back in 2007 to 2009, if I'm not wrong. And we also used code snippets extension, which allows you to have very small snippets of code that work really well. Like we created a small, I think 17 line of code script which help us create previews of all of our draft posts on top of Virtual and Next.js with WordPress, which is pretty amazing. So all six of these Next.js production apps are now, all of their data is now hosted with just one WordPress instance. We have created zero custom plugins and almost, led the charge here in a no-code way because, you know what, I wasn't feeling like programming in PHP again. So I was able to use WordPress without a lot of code, right? And that ended up in content in WordPress, but MDX, woohoo, which is pretty amazing, right? But there were some issues. Let's go over these issues. We encountered a lot of issues. We initially started fetching all of the WordPress data, saving it as JSON in our GitHub repository, and rendering our static website with SSD static site generation using Next.js. And then we started looking at these really really long build times because if you are trying to produce 500 pages, and this is just like 500 posts, there are category pages, listing pages, author pages, it quickly multiplies and it becomes a lot of pages. If you're like trying to render 1,000 pages, no matter what ecosystem you're part of, it is going to take a long, long time to build these pages, especially if you now have a typo to fix. And the fact that it will go on and regenerate all of these pages again, it is just not a clean approach, not a green approach. It is just waste of time and money, right? So, and or draft previews, I should say, were really hard to figure out. They were almost impossible because we were looking at, dealing with everything static. So it was very clear that we wanted dynamic, but we also wanted the speed of static. And that is sort of what Virtual offers, and XCS offers through ISR, incremental static regeneration, which is amazing. You don't have to rebuild your entire site again and again. You can revalidate just some part of pages or some portion of a page, which I'm gonna get to, right? So yeah, let's go over how Next.js and Vercel came to rescue, right? The first thing right off the bat that we started with was we put all of these apps in a monorepo and started using TurboRepo. Thanks to Jared Palmer and his team, we saw an amazing improvement in our build times through, TurboRepo and the monorepo approach we took, right? Almost 4.8x time faster. You see, we had at that time four different production apps, and not only were we able to skip all of the builds for the wrong apps when there was a typo or some small, blog post update. TurboRepo was also able to offer us remote caching, which I think increased a particular build by 80, 90% of the times. Like it would cache almost everything that it needed to cache and just potentially 2x of the data of the data that you actually change would be rebuilt again. And that was amazing. It also really fed into our need to optimize again and again, right? Well, that was awesome. That we were struggling a lot with static. So we thought, how about we make all of this server side rendered and see how it goes. But if you try to render everything with the server on runtime, and if you have millions of people visiting your, websites, playing around with the data, you're either gonna have issues on the server or issues with the people who are paying the bills because your server, the cost of the server would go up. So yeah, while we were still figuring it out, the Next.js team came up with this amazing approach called OISR, on-demand revalidation of incremental static regenerated files. I know this is a mouthful, but think of it like this. So I'm going to assume you already know what incremental static regeneration is. It is when you are able to generate static pages and regenerate them without needing to rebuild the entire site. You do that using revalidate prop, which used to be revalidated by time. So Next.js will attempt to regenerate this page when a request comes in at the most every 10 seconds if you type in 10 for revalidation. Well, this was fun, but it was unnecessary, right? To get a dynamic speed at sort of static speed, you would end up choosing low time and you would end up regenerating a lot of pages for no reason at all. And that's when they came up with on-demand revalidation. It not only helped us adopt this amazing new rendering pattern, but also helped us generate draft preview urls and whatnot. Like, on-demand revalidation is you hit a particular revalidate API endpoint. In that API endpoint basically ends up telling the serverless function running at Warsaw that, well, this particular content needs to be revalidated. We were able to use it to, re-render the listings of our, content, experiment with A/B testing, as well as preview URLs. And we were able to accomplish things like this. So here is a RapidAPI comic about RapidAPI client for VS Code extension. It's an extension that's really close to my heart. Imagine writing an API inside of VS Code and then quickly testing it inside of VS Code, then clicking a button to generate a TypeScript interface from a response. All of that is amazing. And we wanted to create a comic of sorts. And on our DevRel stack, what we do is we create comics around teaching this kind of concepts, right? So here you see inside of WordPress a pretty customized version of what it looks like. Like here's the URL where you will find the same thing, same content on Twitter, and here's the content that is explaining the picture here, right? But what is amazing here is look at this particular URL. It is on rapidapi.com/comics, and here's the slug for this particular comic. But wait a minute, what is happening here? This is WordPress, right? And the front end is in Next.js with MDX. So yeah, this is the glue I'm talking about. This is the glue that I created where you are able to use WordPress like you're used to, but your front end is this modern, cutting edge, Next.js based, like front end, which is deployed on Vercel, which is deployed on Edge and Edge runtime, and you don't even know. Like, for example, let's look at what is going to happen here. So here's my cursor. I'm going to go and click this link. The moment I do, and boom, how fast was that and how beautiful it looks. Thanks to Emina, who illustrates all of these amazing comics for us. But look at this. This is based on Next.js. This is on rapidapi.com/comics. And just like all of our other content, like learn, guides, courses, examples, and comics, right? But on the back of this is WordPress, right? And even if I'm gonna change something here and deploy, it's quickly gonna uh, pick it up, invalidate that particular page, invalidate the listing, and show you the right content while keeping it all static. And that is the power of on-demand revalidation with ISR, right? For example, if I go here, and we were able to use it in all kinds of fun places. Like, for example, here's the listing page of Rapid API Comics, and you see, like, I don't know, a couple of them here, but we have more. So if you click on load more, what do you think is going to happen? We're going to regenerate a new page which is going to have more Rapid API Comics. And you can keep doing this and enjoy a lot more content that we have. So not only are we able to manage this entire infrastructure, all of these images, all of these, cutting edge front end framework with Next.js, we are also able to easily manage all of this files, the content authorship and whatnot with WordPress. And even if we change something here, like Rapid API is the comics are the easiest way to learn API development in the fun way. I literally remember fixing something here, a typo, and re-rendering it through on-demand revalidation with ISR, which is just mind-numbing awesome. So moving back, the next thing was, as you could imagine, this was a lot of work. So teamwork done it. Nirmalia, an amazing Next.js developer on my team, senior developers, program engineer, he and I were talking, and I have to thank Malte here, the CTO of Versal, who gave me early access to Versal preview comments, which is amazing. If you have not seen these, so this takes me back to when I used to design things and my clients were easily able to click on a particular area in my design and give me feedback about, okay, well, this gotta change. Need to, make these colors pop a little bit, all over down and all of that, but with code and GitHub. So Versal preview comments are amazing. You see, with Versal preview URLs, which are already pretty amazing, you don't need to, see the code. You see the actual URL, and you're able to quickly see, okay, this particular React component looks really, really good on my site. Now you're able to have the same discussion right there instead of screenshotting it and making the videos on top of your preview URL. It also gives you a bunch of data. Look at how it looks. You're able to click on this and you're able to like comment and work with your team on this. And it offers you things like your virtual preview was updated. You can refresh it. You work with the team. You have your inbox here. It's just amazing how a small thing like this can improve the collaboration throughout your across your team. Like the fun way I discovered a couple of features were like working with a contractor, they're complaining about something and they're non-technical. You're able to quickly see their browser stats, their window size, their device pixel ratio, all of these data are right there. Almost feels like all of a sudden we have not only the preview URLs but all of the tools like people who are designing our content have, right, which is just the next level of collaboration for code. And the fun thing is, I'm just quickly going to jump here, GitHub integration. You can actually not only integrate these comments, the preview comments with GitHub, you can actually make sure that if all of these comments are not resolved, don't merge this pull request, right? Stuff like this, which blows my mind. And with all of this, we were able to improve the core web vitals of our site. You put WordPress and glue it together with Next.js, and I don't think that there is a more powerful duo out there. It's an amazing workflow, and I'm really excited to share this workflow that I figured out on how WordPress and Next.js go hand in hand, and you are able to overcome the headless limits that WordPress offers. The limits of headless, even you go beyond that, and you really work on dynamic content, and you update it dynamically with your team. All of your content managed with an amazing, awesome front end. All of all while it's really well integrated with Warsaw and Next.js, right? And let me actually go ahead and show you what it looks like on the back end. So for 75th percentile on mobile in last 7 days, we are hitting 100% amazing real user experience. And we are still improving. This is not fair. Like if you go up on a little bit up on desktop, like 90 or 95th, it does go down, but we are trying to improve a lot. We have the information on our hand. We're using these analytics to really improve the core web vitals. And the stats are, if anything, a big representation of our direction the right way. It's like we saw more than 2 million developers visit and learn from all of these resources on rapidapi.com/learn, right? There are still some problems that I'm working on. I'm improving this workflow. Like I use Shiki 2 slash, which offers, your same VS Code theme syntax highlighting on your website, and it uses file system API of Node.js, which it doesn't really import the theme files, which makes the Vercel serverless ecosystem thing that these files from and your Node modules are not important. So we figured out a very hacky way of touching these files. So Vercel serverless function would kind of use those files in production as well in case we have to render a preview or render a file that is static but is being rendered on runtime based on on-demand ISR, right? So that was a little bit hacky. It's also where we found out that debugging workflow with OISR could be improved a lot. We could potentially get a lot of help if we can stream all of these logs from our serverless functions in a local environment somehow. And again, I've touched on this point. WordPress used headlessly is limited, and all of this, workflow that I've built, I'm excited to share soon, is probably going to help you improve that glue between this amazing CMS and this amazing React framework Next.js, right? With that, I think we are done. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening my talk. If you have questions, if you're excited about the same things that I'm excited about, want to know more about this workflow I keep talking about, come follow me on Twitter. You see the links right here, or subscribe to my newsletter, which I send a couple of times a year, where I'm going to announce share more of these things in my courses and whatnot. Yeah, I just really want to say that Next.js layouts are going to be freaking amazing. That feature is going to help us change blocks of content, not the whole content, and improve our overall real user experience, core web vitals, but also the mental model will be simplified, hopefully, when you're working with so many different rendering patterns in a single page, with working with so many different components. Each of these, sometimes needs to be rendered on server or runtime or build time or whatnot, right? So pretty excited. Let's have a chat about it and see you soon on Twitter. Bye. Peace.